Cameron versus 50 Cent seems to be over. The beef is over. I never thought I would see this day.
BT they asked me, they said, what happened with the Cameron thing because they didn't hear anything anymore. And I said, I didn't hear anything either.
I mean, that beef wasn't that serious. Is they like squashing it? Like, would you squash the beef? Like,
you know what it is? That was competition. That was just competing. I mean,
would you squash it too?
No.
50 Cent posted a picture on Instagram today and said, I said, Cam, I would talk to like you ain't got money if I didn't see them big ass knots in your pocket. Effing vodka. Because we all know Cameron carries a lot of cash with him. If you remember seeing him in the 2000s on the DVDs. But, it's good to see these guys putting their beef to rest. I've seen a lot of people putting their beef to rest lately, So this is a good thing. And especially with two people that were so big in New York, especially in the mid-2000s. G-Unit and Dipset ran the music game. Let's go back in time right now to one of the biggest hip-hop beefs and most entertaining hip-hop beefs that was really based on nothing. This is the truth behind the beef of 50 Cent and Cameron. So basically, this all stems back to Alan Grumbluck and Koch Records. If you don't remember, before 50 Cent got his deal with Eminem and Dre, he was hot in the street. You probably don't remember this, but this is like when I was in high school, so I clearly remember this. 50 Cent was hot in the mixtape game. He was dissing everybody. He was hot, and this was right before Eminem and Dre came to scoop him. He dropped this album called Guess Who's Back with Koch, and it was a picture with him and a gun on the cover, and he knew he was about to sign with them and Dre. So he told Alan Grumbluck specifically at Koch Records, don't go too crazy with this. This was also Bob Perry. Don't go too crazy with this and impress too many. He also warned him about this DVD that was coming out that DJ Who Kid did called Rewind. And he said, don't put me on the cover. Don't put me on the cover. But what did they do? They put him on the cover and they went hard with the DVD too. And it was a problem. They pressed tons of them.
Let me tell you what he did. Because Bob, what Bob did, I got my money out of that. But Bob, what he was doing is, I was like, yo, listen, certain shit, I was like, look, you can't do this, right? He was doing the Rewind DVD, right? Yeah, man. Who Kid was a bootlegger, right? He don't give a fuck. He's like, just give me 5,000 copies. Right. So I put pressure on Bob, right? Was Alan Grumbluck involved? Yeah. Okay. So they gave me 80,000 because they was going to put that DVD out. But then I said, don't put me on the commercial. Do not put me on the cover. Right? I said, if you do, I don't know you when they come.
And did 100,000 the first week, and kind of put 50 Cent in a bad little in the middle of something, and they had to shut down the project and all this other stuff. So this was back in 2002. So fast forward years later, G-Unit's huge. 2006, G-Unit's huge. Dipset is bigger than ever. Cameron being a boss that he is. He's got albums coming out with Duke the God, of Dipset, almost like Diplomatic Immunity albums, but they were called More Than Music. They were coming out on Koch. So Cameron was doing business with Koch independently, getting his independent bread, while also having a deal on Rockefeller with Diplomat Records with Joel Santana and him. Because Joel Santana was on Def Jam and he was on Rockefeller. So basically, there was this one day. Now, Jim Jones came out independently on Koch. And, of course, Cameron was getting a piece of all this, right? So there was this time where Jim Jones was up there with Cameron status. He had Ballin' out. Remember Ballin'? That was Jim Jones' big record. And, he was coming out with lots of material around this time. Jim Jones was flooding the market. Dipset was untouchable. You had Joel Santana doing his thing. Even Freaky Zeke, Cameron, and Jim Jones. Everybody. And then you had the little one, like J.R. Ryder, Hell Rell. They had deals at Koch too. So Dipset was running, pumping money through Koch. And now 50 Cent still had this kind of problem with Koch. And for some, him and Alan Grunblatt never got along. Alan Grunblatt was the greedy guy behind Koch. So Jim Jones had come out with this DVD called Fast Life, and Cameron was on it, and his bodyguard was on it, Joe. I guess they were up at the Koch office, and Alan Grunblatt happened to turn on the radio, and 50 Cent was on the radio. Now, the reason I mentioned that DVD is because Cameron was up there to basically bother Alan about getting a check out of being on this DVD and it being sold without having his release to sell this DVD. So he was up there to get money, period. That's how Cameron gets down. So 50 Cent's on the radio with Angie Martinez, and he was talking about Koch. He was talking about how he has to shut down projects over there. He was very anti-independent label at the time. He was always talking about how many numbers he did and how many numbers his crew did. Young Buck was coming out going platinum. Lloyd Banks was coming out going platinum. Now, Lloyd Banks was on his second album at this time. I think he did like 300,000, but Jim Jones was putting up big numbers on Koch, like 300,000, 500,000, because he was hot with that record. So Jim Jones was on his second album, On My Way to Church. He had already released Product of My Environment, which did huge numbers, and now he was putting out On My Way to Church. And of course, Duke the God was probably on his third More Than Music. Then you got Hell Rel and all them over there. So Cameron's tied in with Koch. He's making a lot of money on Koch. So he's up there with Alan Grunblatt, and they hear 50 come on the radio, and he's kind of downplaying Koch records on the independent game. So Alan Grunblatt gasses Cameron up. This is the truth behind this beef, and this is how stupid this beef was. So Alan Grunblatt pays Cameron, I think like $100,000 or $200,000, to beef with 50 Cent. Call up Hot 97 while 50 Cent is up there and kind of beef with him.
That's what I was asking. Can you do it? That's what I'm asking.
What I'm saying to you is, listen, let me explain something to you. I'm saying to you, I got projects over there. I just signed off.
Prodigy deal
Right.
over there,
I just let him do that deal.
Hey,
Where did Lloyd Banks finish that? How much Lloyd Banks sold?
Well, Lloyd Banks is at 300,000.
And he's on the major, and Jim is at 300,000.
Right. And that's great for Jimmy, because Jimmy's not, let's look. That's great for Jimmy. You're not going to be, cause a whole different situation. Watch this.
And Cameron is fine with this because when you have a beef with somebody, all you do is sell more albums. So he's getting paid to do this, and he's going to sell more records because Jim Jones is going to sell more. Now, I clearly remember this day because I was working behind the scenes on the Emotionless video with Jim Jones and Joel Santana when this was all happening. So I remember Cameron called up, and 50 Cent lets Cameron come on the line with him, and they're on Andrew Martinez's show. And Cameron just starts in on 50 like, Lloyd Banks didn't do those numbers. Look at Jim Jones. You can't shut anything down here at Koch. It turns into an aggressive conversation because that's what he was paid to do. And, 50 Cent is no one to shy away from beef. So he said, you want to go this way? Let's go this way. Now, I remember that day because when that happened, Joel Santana and Jim Jones reacted at the video set. They kind of came into a corner and kind of started talking, and they were they didn't want it. They weren't comfortable with this because 50 Cent around this time was destroying people's careers. And he was, he was hurting Fat Joe's career, destroyed Ja Rule's career. But he was, he was attacking anyone that was affiliated with Ja Rule, and he had a good track record for beefing with people. The three big crews in New York City at this time was D Block, Dipset, and G Unit, and all in New York. So it was almost like they had to clash at one point. So this was the clashing point, and this is the point that destroyed Dipset. G Unit was already on its way out. Game was already beefing with 50 on the GU Not campaign, and that was all behind Nas and everything. So that was already on its way out. You know, a couple years later, Young Buck would call 50 crying. 50 would record it and distribute it, and G-Unit would kind of fall apart. But, okay, so now let's get back to this. So the radio thing happens. 50 Cent wastes no time. Screw dropping a diss track. He drops a diss video called Funeral Music, where it starts out with like a cartoon of Cameron's funeral, and then they have cartoons of Cameron getting shot when he was in D.C., in his remember Cameron got shot in D.C. in his Lambo when he was on probation, and he got arrested. And then, you know, he even at the end picks apart the Dipset camp and says, "You're demoted, Cameron, and Jim Jones is the new boss of Dipset, and Joel's is the president." You know, he's kind of like getting in the middle of the whole thing, which is kind of, this is the end of Dipset, and we didn't even know it yet. Because we were thinking, oh, Dipset, they all from Harlem, they've been with each other for over a decade, nothing can break them up. Well, Cameron drops Curtis diss video right after that, like a day later. We get that, and this is when YouTube just started in 2006. So we get those two videos, but in Cameron's video, there's no sign of Jim Jones, no sign of Joel Santana. It's showing no unity, not even Hell Rel or the other J.R. Ryder. So you're like wondering like what's going on, and his whole campaign is just Curtis, and he's just talking about how, you know, he messes with the cops, he has a gap in his teeth, blah 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 blah. You know, it's like a stupid beef because there's no real foundation to it. When you knew that Dipset was fucked up was when 50 Cent came on BET. Remember that show Rap City that came on BET when BET was dope? And you had Rap City. 50 Cent was hosting, and he brought a guest in, and the guest was Jim Jones. Jim Jones chose a side. He chose the side of 50 Cent. And this is where it showed, when you show weakness in a crew, it's over. You know, so that basically Jim Jones kind of went his way. Cameron went his way. Cameron dropped like 2 more diss videos after that. 50 Cent got hot with Get Money, like right after that. He got I Get Money. That was a huge song, and it kind of like rebirthed his career to like give him more life. You know, when you get more life in a video game, you're down to like 25% life, and then you eat like a mushroom or something in Mario Brothers, and then you turn into like a big Mario again. That's what I Get Money, like it breathed new life into 50 Cent's career. And when he was asked about that around that time, you know, they were like, "Would you ever squash the beef with Cameron?" He's like, "Nah, I'm fine where it is." You know,
BT, they asked me, they said, you know, what happened with the Cameron thing, because they didn't hear anything anymore. And I said, I didn't hear anything either.
I mean, that beef wasn't that serious. His name is like squashing it. Like, would you squash the beef? Like,
you know what it is? That was competition. That was just competing. I mean, if you got an actual issue with someone, it's a different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, if you said something out your mouth, like, of course I look at him like, I mean, Bozo, the kid, he was on the road. So, see, really what happens is they get away.
Y'all had actual reenactments and stuff.
Yeah,
actors.
That was help. Come on, Aaron Flex was helping him. He's being nice to him, like giving him the like, whoa, when he said something. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, he's helping him. He's helping. But on up and up, for real. I mean, you know, it's no way, it's no match. This guy sold 200,000 copies on his last album. Sold $9.7 million.
Would you squash it too?
No. I mean, I'm fine with where it is now. I mean, when you're winning, you can just keep winning. And I set it off. And I let Cam run. And what you do is they counted the combined hits of everything that had 50 Cent on it. So if it says 50 Cent, if it says Cameron 50 Cent diss, if it says Game 50 Cent diss, or anything that says 50 Cent, all of it that gets hit, YouTube looks at it and credits it to 50 Cent for traffic driven to YouTube. And this is what allowed me to be able to do the YouTube You Rap contest. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. When you got people that are asleep at the wheel, they often see the wizard saying, if I only had a brain, you got to use them.
Now, is it?
Anytime I just did a deal with YouTube where anytime you search 50 Cent and beef and you get hits, I get paid off the hits. You know, he was like promoting YouTube around that time and doing deals with YouTube. And around this time, Cameron kind of just disappeared. I remember his mom got sick in Florida, and he kind of just fell back from the rap scene for about 3 or 4 years. I don't know if you guys remember the infamous pool scene where Cameron appears and makes some statements next to like a little baby pool. That was funny. I'll link that below too. And we didn't hear back from him until like him and Votto started hitting the scene, and that was exciting around 2010, 11. We saw him and Votto going hard because Votto used to be signed to Cameron first. But it's nice to see that, they put it, there was nothing really behind all this beef. I remember around this time, Jim Jones and Juelz were really tight, and Cameron, they just weren't tight anymore. They did the Dipset reunion recently, but it's still, obviously Cameron and Jim Jones are at odds. I mean, look at Jim Jones left a comment underneath 50 Cent's photo and said, "Things are funny. This is funny style shit," So, it's good to see at least like this beef is over because it was obviously behind nothing. But, Jim Jones left a little comment on it. They'll be cool. Cameron and Jim Jones they're brothers. So, he said, "Life is funny. Ain't he still a bird?" Because, Cameron was calling 50 Cent a bird. But, that's like the real gist of this beef. It was really behind nothing. So it's good to see that they put this to bed because, it wasn't really based on anything. It wasn't real beef. It was just competition, really. They were both the biggest crews in New York City, and they had to come to a head, I guess. Alan Grumblack obviously put the money behind it and made it happen. But, it probably would have happened regardless.